absolutely relentless selling. That has been the discussion in the crypto market as well as stocks alike. Constant downtrend day after day. How could you possibly salvage your portfolio and stay safe in the market? It's Crypto Neil, and I'm going to tell you exactly how. I'm going to show you a few of my trades over the last days, just how you can be profitable in a downtrending and choppy and volatile market environment, how you can keep those profits locked in and stay safe in the market. We're going to jump into some Bitcoin and Ethereum analysis. But before that, if you haven't checked out my last video, I go in depth on where I think Ethereum is going in more macro view of things. I've also laid out where the price could potentially bottom. I actually took a trade on that point and it's up quite good. So we'll take a look at those. And without further ado, let's just jump on into the charts.
So let's dive on into the analysis. And as promised, I'm going to show you guys some of my trades. Probably about 6 of these are from Monday alone, and then a few from late last week, I believe Friday. I don't trade on weekends. I just find volatility and low volume don't mix well with my strategy. So I learn from my mistakes and I don't trade on weekends. So without further ado, these are the trades. We have a whiff short where oh, by the way, some of these you'll see I closed, and some of these you'll just see an entry and the current price. And that's because when I screenshot this, I am taking profits off the table and then I save it. That way I can kind of see my compounding gains. And when I do initially take profit, I then move my stop loss to my entry, which creates a risk-free trade. Therefore, if price went back to the entry, I wouldn't lose any money. So these are solid gains. Let's just dive through them quick. We have a whiff short, 31% gain. Ethereum long, 25% gain. Another 25% gain, basically the same trade over again on Ethereum. We have CRV short. That was from, I believe, this morning. Another ETH long. 56%, quite nice. Another whiff short. Again, very similar to the first trade I posted. We just essentially, we were stopped out and then we re-entered at the same price. So we made that huge like 30% and then 20% twice, essentially the same trade. LTC short, that was this morning. I could have held on to that for a lot more profits, but LTC is often quite volatile and likes to move against your position, so locking in profits fast is ideal for that asset. And then we have a whiff long where we gained 11%, so I believe that's last week. Oh, and then ETH. This Ethereum long, this was during Monday when it was heavily downtrending, and we just kind of scalped long. Although the overall move was down that day, you can still make money when the market is bleeding. You just play the smaller bounces when you are trading lower time frames, and I will show you exactly what I mean by that. We also have this Ethereum long to close out with a 2% gain. So those are all of our trades. We've been very, very fortunate, and my only loss, I will admit, I do have a 2% loss that I couldn't find the photo of, but I do have a 2% loss. I'm not undefeated, but I am about 16-1 right now, so I'm feeling very, very blessed, and I will go over kind of how I am dominating in such a difficult market. So BTC on the daily time frame, you can see here we have the McDonald's fortune, whatever you want to call it. We have the golden arches forming, essentially coming back down to where we initially broke out. And we have stated in previous videos that retesting this zone is completely safe and still validates an uptrend because we never have retested this. However, I do think downside from this is quite limited. And the reason I say that, even though we've essentially broken down from this consolidation structure, back tested it as resistance and are going lower, with today's price action turnaround Tuesday closing with upward momentum. And what I mean by that is we have our momentum waves on Market Cipher indicator. Here we have a low, here we have a higher low, and we have a low in price with a nice wick followed by a lower low in price. So that is divergence in momentum. We then have divergence in RSI. where we have a lower low and a higher low in RSI, a higher low and a lower low in price. So thus, this is confirming on a nice high time frame, the daily, that we could see a reversal. We do have bullish divergence forming, which for me, the next confirmation that we are going higher is if we reclaim the bull bear control zone, which I have marked on this golden horizontal line. It is around the 42 to 44 read on the daily RSI. And I like this because on the RSI, we tend to interact with this line, and typically when we're bullish, we're closing above. When we're bearish, we're closing below. So a reclaim of this is heavily bullish paired with the bullish divergence formed on the RSI. So that's it looming in the background amidst all of this downside, amidst this massive move of essentially 30%, which has been the biggest correction of this cycle, I believe, thus far. So keep in mind, if you are thinking of selling or going short at this phase, your risk reward of further downside is very minimal. Essentially, you're looking at a bounce as the greater return play at this point, and with the divergence forming, I do think it is very likely. And because we had essentially a month of just selling off, or a few weeks anyway, yeah, it's been a month since January. We've had a month of just straight down price action, so a bounce could get quite aggressive, and I will talk about the levels now that I am currently watching out for. So the first target I had to the downside was met. That was around 84K. That is the first hurdle I'd like to get above on the daily. If we can start closing above where we had this, it's a bullish hammer, although it closed red, where we had this hammer candlestick close, ultimately getting above that closure at 83.9, let's call it 84K. That's going to be the first indication that your bullish divergence is playing out, and I would be looking for higher. I would actually be looking for kind of a W pattern to play out, and your next target would obviously be 90K. It's a nice round number. It's also where we broke down from, but you do want to see it reclaim this zone and ultimately go for where we initially broke down from. Any price holding above this level is super, super bullish, but we do have a long way to go before we get there. But let's see if this bullish divergence plays out on the daily. We can also go to lower time frames here and see that we do have bullish divergence on the 4-hour forming. We do have money flow coming up quite nicely, so we could see this start to turn up intra-week here. So some exciting news amidst all the absolute destruction happening in the crypto market. Hopefully you guys are staying safe. And before I close out, I do want to go over Ethereum, which I touched on heavily in the last video, of a more macro view on things. Ethereum, what I was looking for on essentially the weekly time frame was a retest of anywhere where we started this bullish move, this quick move to the upside. So I had here initially marked off around the 2K to 8,500 zone was what I was looking for, which is initially where we broke out from. Are now retesting 82. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. 1825 I had marked off on Ethereum as a key point for essentially taking a blind long. And the reason for that area is essentially we broke down from that area right here, 1830. We broke down from here on a monthly time frame and then reclaimed that zone, never to again retest that reclamation. I don't even know if that's a word. But ultimately, I was looking for a retest around 1850 to 1825 because then that would validate this as support. It's also something that just never was retested. And usually when you come back down from a large move, initially you do get some sort of bounce. Whether that bounce is a reversal or, we go to new highs, that's to be left in question, and future price action has to develop before we can determine that. But for the time being, a bounce is suspected, so we are building along on Ethereum on lower time frames. And in order to be profitable on lower time frames, I like to also look at divergences and momentum. Typically, divergences on RSI are most powerful on a daily time frame or a 4 hour. Anything less than that, it's really hard to see merit in divergences on like a 5 minute time frame, because essentially you can keep having lower lows form and lose out on your position before the divergence actually plays out. So you want to look on higher time frame first and then go down to lower time frame to actually get the best entry on your move. But you can look at something like the money flow and momentum oscillators, and essentially you're just playing these huge momentum waves. So when you get a large wave into the critical zone followed by a green dot, that essentially is saying there's seller exhaustion happening. And then inversely to the upside, it's buyer exhaustion. And if you look at essentially this green dot here, it correlates to a bottom, and this red dot here, it correlates to a top. So these are great moments to swing trade on lower time frames, such as the hourly, and this is valid through time frames as well. So you can see we have this money flow, which is this deep red wave followed by a green wave. You can see it's kind of a nice like sine wave, if you're familiar, where you just have this up, down, up, down. It's very predictable price action. So when you have that nice predictable flow, you can kind of get in on these deep dips expecting it to turn back up, and vice versa. So that's what we're looking for when we're scalping. And then the larger time frames, we're looking for divergence, so we can essentially DCA and then make those big returns instead of these just like tiny scalps that we have to use high leverage in order to gain decent value on the portfolio. So those are some strategies. That's Bitcoin and Ethereum on higher time frame. I hope you guys are staying safe in the market. And
so thanks again for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, I really do appreciate all the positive feedback I've been getting from you guys. It's just been a blessing to be able to grow and to share my opinion with others, and to receive any feedback is ultimately how I can grow and improve for you guys and provide you better content. So I do appreciate a like, and any comments you have, maybe drop a couple altcoins and I will go into further in-depth analysis in a future video for you. So thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one, guys.